Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us for another live reading stream. So good to have all of you here. Hey, Leia and Blondie and Serenity. I see Osiris made it. Winter, hello, hello. All my usual faces, it looks like. I like that. Alrighty, welcome everybody, and I'm glad again that you could make it. Let's see. Trying to think if we've got any news here. The 8-year compilation is out. A Touch of Madness. I believe there's a link in the community tab. Blondie, if you want to link that in chat, that would be great. Blondie linked it for me earlier. Still waiting on this audiobook that I just narrated to come out, so I'll keep you guys posted on that. And I'm working on another one right now, so hopefully it'll be out pretty soon. Hoping to have it done in the next couple of weeks, so I'll keep you guys posted. I tend to tear through them pretty quick as the deadline gets a little sooner. Let's see. Oh, I would like to thank Blondie this week. She's been helping me edit some of the boo-boos out of my stories since I have to go to work. She's been reading over them for me and helping me make sense of some of the word soup there. So thanks to her, that's been quite helpful. Ooh, excuse me. And we've got 5 more stories for you tonight. Excuse me. Got the hiccups there. I've been working on some more grandpa stories. I'm hoping to get in touch with Ladama pretty soon, so that she can voice Glimmer, because there's going to be some Glimmer. There's going to be some Glimmer appearances in the next couple of grandpa stories, so that should be fun. But we'll soldier on till then. Today, our bunch is we've got a Laughing Audience story. We've got another Cashmere story. We've got a Dr. Winters story. So I hope Winter's still here, because I know she likes stories about her namesake. And then we've got a couple of short stories. So we've got a pretty full roster tonight. I don't think you guys will be too spoiled for content tonight. Let's see. You guys having a good day? Hopefully you guys are having a good week. It's about midway through the week now, so hopefully you guys have got enough steam to get you through till Friday. Other than that, just business as usual around here. Let's see. Let's get started with our Laughing Audience story tonight, I guess. We'll start with that, and we'll just work our way down, as we do. So, this one, we're rejoining Agent Warwick as he goes up against the Laughing Audience. So, this one's called Diplomacy Before Violence, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Hang on just a second, guys. Sorry about that, guys. It's somebody with a loud phone in the living room. So, here we go. Diplomacy before violence. I'm sorry, Agent Warwick, but Director Hires is dealing with something at the moment and is out of office. Have you tried his cell phone? Warwick had called his cell phone first and growled at the poor woman before he could stop himself. I understand. Can I leave a message? Of course. Go ahead, Agent. Tell him I need to speak with him as soon as possible. about a matter concerning my current assignment. Time is of the essence. Please make sure he knows that." "Of course, sir. I'll tell him when I see him. I suggest you keep trying his cell phone." Warwick said he would, and then promptly hung up on her. His phone buzzed again as the news talked about this Jarrett's Dirge business. Warwick supposed it was some viral marketing for his last album, but it sounded like it might have gone awry. There were rumors that it was killing people, and he knew what was actually going on. Warwick didn't have time for rumors and news. He had things to do. He rubbed out his cigarette and headed inside. He was... Am I back? I am back, okay. He had been speaking with Carlos for the last few days, and they were running out of time to get this... Ah, that is the line. And they were running out of time to get this pulled. He'd tried to get the actors to strike, tried to get Carlos to talk to the others so he could get them to sabotage the production. But Carlos had been different after their meeting over Wings. He was scared. They were all scared. And he had told Warwick that he couldn't meet with him after their last. "Things have changed. It's not just my life anymore. I can't risk anyone else for the sake of the case." With no help coming from that front, Warwick had decided to go to the network. If they wouldn't pull the plug, he'd go to the power company. When they heard that their cash cow was about to be tainted, they would have to put a stop to it. The waiting room was the usual gaudy affair. They had hung their accolades everywhere, and a sea of eyes looked down at him from the posters of hit TV shows. Warwick had watched many of them. They were shows he had grown up with, and they made him a little nostalgic for a time when things had been easier, less hectic. The place was an altar to their The place was an altar to their accomplishments, and it was meant to put people at ease, though it mostly made Warwick think of better times. The woman behind the desk smiled at him as he approached, but Warwick was already reaching for his credentials. "May I help you, sir?" "Agent Warwick, FBI. I need to speak with your head of programming. It's very important." The woman looked flushed at the sight of the badge and asked him to have a seat as she made some calls. Warwick opted to lean against her reception desk as she frantically called a few people, and her eyes kept slipping back to him as she was transferred again and again. She was getting flustered, but seemed intent on finding him someone of importance. For his part, Warwick just stood there and looked imposing. He could do that when he needed to. His phone kept buzzing in his pocket, and Warwick was sure that it had something to do with this Jarrett thing. The TVs in the lobby were talking about it now too, and Warwick saw that the death toll was climbing. Internet speculation was one thing, but this was Fox News. If it was on the networks, there had to be something to it. The receptionist finally found someone willing to speak with Warwick, and seemed relieved to be rid of him. "Go to the 7th floor. He's waiting for you in the 3rd floor office on the right." My apologies. Excuse me. Had a little fettuccine for dinner. It's not sitting well, I guess. He's waiting. There we go. "He's waiting for you in the 3rd office on the right. Good luck," she added as he walked past her, making for the elevators. The ride was smooth, and when the doors opened, Warwick found a young woman in a pantsuit waiting for him. "You must be the FBI agent my boss is freaking out about. Come with me, he's waiting." She led him to a glass and metal monstrosity with a glass door that read Marcus Sage, Production and Scheduling. Not exactly what Warwick had been looking for, but it would have to do. The young woman pushed inside like she'd done it 1,000 times. and Warwick saw a very sweaty, very harried-looking man behind the desk in a charcoal gray suit. He was typing something furiously, his little mustache twitching with every keystroke, and he finished quickly as Warwick came to loom over his desk. Yes, sir, how can I help you? I hope it's something easy, because I'm absolutely swamped today. Devilishly easy, actually. I need the Fausti Review event for Friday canceled. The man had likely been expecting him to ask any number of things, but that was clearly not it. He looked back from the screen, his face conveying all the surprise and incomprehension that Warwick had expected to see. Cancel the show? The guy must think he was crazy. Do you have any idea what you're asking? Fausti Review is a multi-million-dollar undertaking. There's so much already at play here that it would be impossible to cancel. Why would you want such a thing in the first place? Because we believe that airing it would put a lot of people in danger. The man lifted an eyebrow. How so? Warwick hid his grin. He had him on the hook. Now he just had to reel him in. We believe that someone is going to use the broadcast to put a message that your network wouldn't agree with. Put out a message. Isn't this a word? Yeah. There we go. Let's try that again. We believe that some... All right. We believe that someone is going to use the broadcast to put out a message that your network wouldn't agree with. It's something that could be very dangerous to both this country and many others. It's dangerous, and we need to cancel this broadcast and get your show back under control. I put the wrong spot. The man seemed to chew this over, and he did not like what he tasted. I can assure you, Agent Warwick, that the script projections are very sound. There is nothing that is going to air that will hurt or endanger anyone. I don't know where you get your information from, but it's incorrect. Warwick racked his brain as he tried to think of something to tell this man. And then he remembered the stuff that he'd been seeing in his peripherals all day. This may be connected to the Jarrett incident. The man's eyebrows shot up into his hairline. What? Are you certain? I don't see how. The incident is only just, we believe it's a similar intention. Look, I can assure you that my information is sound. We need to pull the premiere, or at least postpone it until we can be sure. This is very important. It could cost the company a lot of money if you aren't absolutely sure about it. The man chewed it over some more, but Warwick could already tell that he wasn't going for it. The potential loss was just too great, and he knew that the network would have his head if he even thought about canceling something this big. It had been a waste of time. He knew that, but Warwick had needed to take the chance. He needed to be sure that it couldn't be done with words before he shut it down with force. I can assure you, Agent Warwick, we will look into this incident thoroughly. Rest assured, if we feel that the public is in danger, we will not air our Fausti Review special. Now, if that's all, I really need to get back to work. Warwick smiled at him, but on the inside, he was seething. The man would do nothing, and Warwick would have to do this on his own. He drove back to the dingy little motel that he was staying at, and when the phone rang, he almost let it go to voicemail. Then he saw it was Director Hires, and he caught it on the fourth ring. Sir, I need some favors. I've cracked this case wide open, and Warwick, it's the show, sir. They're coming through the show, and they mean to target children. We can't let them go live Friday. It would be catastrophic. Warwick, he tried again. Sir, I know how this sounds, but I need more time. Warwick, Hires said, getting a little louder. But Agent Warwick rolled over him. "This is huge, sir. The crew of Falsity Review is planning something. Their live event on Friday is going to be a huge problem, and I believe the gallery is going to try to attack people by using the show itself. I need to shut it down immediately. I've tried going through practical channels, but they're bucking me. They won't shut down the show, and they won't listen to reason. I need clearance to pull the plug on this. I need Warwick," his supervisor yelled, and it finally rattled Warwick enough to shut him up. "We don't have time. There's a serious event unfolding, and we need all hands on deck. We had a series of suicides reported after a viral video, and we need people to determine how it's occurring. This is your department, Warwick, and we need you here to consult. Pack your bags and get back to Washington ASAP. Over 100 people have already died, and I need your input yesterday." Warwick looked at his phone as though he couldn't believe it. Hires had always had his back, but he'd never asked for his input on a matter. Warwick was the spooky ghost that lived in the basement and was only trotted out when he needed to be involved in something dire. He worked mostly autonomously, never really answering to anyone but Director Hires, and he wasn't used to being called home like this. "Sir, I can't just leave this case like this. I'm at a critical point. Fuck whatever you have going on, Warwick. I need you working on Jarrett's Dirge case yesterday. This video is killing people somehow, and you need to help us. God, this is why I fund your department, Maxwell. This is why I justify your salary when the number crunchers talk about cutting the budget. I have stuck my neck out for you more times than any other agent. Now get your ass back here and prove me right." Warwick bit his lip. The director was right. Try that one again. The director was right, but Warwick couldn't shake the feeling that these two events were connected. He had been looking into Jarrett's death, as well as the death of his ex-fiancée. The video evidence led him to believe that the gallery might be involved in those deaths as well. If this video was killing people, Warwick thought they probably had something to do with it. This felt like a feint, maybe even a misdirect, and Warwick knew he had to maintain. "I'm sorry, sir, but I feel this is more important. I also feel that this case may be connected to yours. We need to get that video pulled ASAP, and we need to stop this broadcast as well." "I'm not asking, Warwick. If you don't get your ass back to Washington, the next thing you will see is state police. You will return, or I will have you rounded up and disavowed. Do you understand?" Warwick hung up on him. Then he stripped the battery, doused the phone, and tossed it in the trash after collecting his things and heading for his rental car. In an hour, the car would be parked across the street from the Avis dealership, and Warwick would be on foot. He had to get as far from the car, the hotel, and anything else he'd been familiar with before they started looking for him. He would stop the gallery, no matter the fallout that came afterward. There you go. There's your laughing audience story. Give me like 2 minutes. I gotta go to the bathroom. I will be right back. And then we will go into our Kashmir story for the week. Let's see. Alright, like I said, 2 minutes. Be right back. Alrighty. Sorry about that. Okay, my mic is still on. I do that every now and again. Yeah, no, call of nature. You guys know how it is. Anywho, we're going to go into our Kashmir story, which is called Book Club and stars Angela and her little group of, I guess, what would you call it? Indoctrinated people, her little bright bunch. I don't know. But it involves Angela and their meetings about the bright. So let's roll right in. Angela was just putting the finishing touches on the snacks for today's meeting. Meeting, she thought with a little giggle. She meant book club. She had told her husband that she was starting a book club, and he had kissed her on the forehead and told her that sounded just fine. A book club would be just the thing to get her a little adult interaction. He had become worried that she was inside most of the time. She hadn't been going to her usual Yeah, if I could talk today. Hang on. Get a little chapstick on there. She hadn't been going to her usual bridge club meetings, and she hadn't been doing much community outreach lately. He probably suspected that she was going through menopause or something, and she supposed that or something was right on the money. The deviled eggs looked nice next to the bundt cake and the cheese ball with the Ritz crackers she had just set up. She had also made punch, though not the punch that Brother Thomas had said that she would give to her husband. She hadn't had the nerve to try and give any of it to her husband yet, but she had been slipping a little at a time to her son. He always commented on how good it tasted, and when he asked for more, she always told him that that had been the last of it and that she'd have to get more. She remembered what the delivery kid had told her about it causing madness, and it had made her very hesitant and very cautious. The doorbell rang as though... Try that again. The doorbell rang, and as though summoned by her thoughts, he was there. She had put a stop to calling him the delivery boy in her head. She had met him several more times, and he had told her that his name was Brandon. He had a man with him that she recognized. She had known Tyler Durden for many, many years, and she smiled and shook his hand when he offered it. Tyler has heard the message and has decided to come and join us at today's meeting. Well, that's just lovely. Come on in, Tyler. I have snacks on the table, and there's punch in the kitchen if you'd like some. There we go. Tyler thanked her as he went in to get some snacks, and Brandon laughed a little as he patted Angela on the back. Snacks and punch. We really do sound like a church meeting here. She expected it might be just the three of them, but she was in for a surprise. No sooner had she settled on the couch with her refreshments than there was a knock on the door. She got up to find two more people on the front porch. They were both smiling and holding books, though she noticed they weren't the same books. They both told her they were here for book club, and Angela invited them in to get some snacks. Book club was the code word that Brother Thomas had given them if anyone was to ask what they were doing. He said that a religious meeting of an unnamed Try that one again. He said that a religious meeting or an unnamed gathering might draw too much attention, and the town was definitely on high alert. A book club, however, was so mundane that no one would think twice about it. Angela supposed that next time they would really need to decide on a book so that they could all get organized, because Brother Thomas had been absolutely correct. It was hard to walk very far in town these days without seeing a poster warning about the strangers, or seeing policemen walking around, as they seemed to be looking for some... As they seemed to be looking for something out of the ordinary. They had deputized a few of the men in town and put them on the borders so that they could keep an eye out for newcomers. The town had apparently decided it didn't want anything to do with the Bright, but that was okay. Angela had a little doubt that they could be convinced, and she was good at two things in this world: cooking up a world-class spread for a meeting and convincing people. "It looks like we have 2 new friends for book club," she said, as she led the new arrivals into the living room. One of them looked like a farmer, a man in bib overalls and a checked shirt. He had a wide-brimmed hat under one arm, and his boots looked a little muddy, like he had been stomping through a cow pasture in them. Thankfully, he did not leave any mud behind when he came into the house, and Angela was pretty glad of it. The other woman was someone she knew vaguely. She was a librarian, or a librarian assistant, at the Kashmir Public Library. She was a dark-skinned woman in a puffy-looking skirt and a pleated bottom... Can't read today. Sorry, guys. And a pleated button-down shirt, who seemed to be perpetually pushing her glasses up her nose. She had her hair drawn back in a very severe bun, and she seemed very unused to making eye contact. "My name's Harold Lafferty," the farmer said, "and our friend on the radio told me there was going to be a book club today, and I should probably get my butt over here." The woman looked around as if she wasn't sure if it was her turn yet, and when she spoke, Angela had to lean in to hear her. "My name is Linda Taylor. I was driving home when I heard a voice on the radio. He told me things that I liked the sound of, so I decided to come and see what he was talking about. He told me about the book club on the way to work today. I've never called out from work before," she said, as if her boss might kick in the door and discover her here. "But I was so curious about the Bright that I decided to come and have a look." Brandon put a finger to his mouth and made a shushing sound. "We're not ready to say the names out loud yet. There's a lot of hate in this town, and I don't want the wrong people to hear us. For now, Brother Thomas is just our special friend, and his organization is just that, an organization." Linda looked stricken, as if Brandon had shouted at her, but Angela patted her arm and assured her that everything was okay. She offered the two of them snacks, and as they ate, she heard another knock at the door. She was beginning to wonder how many there would be, and as she opened the door, she found another woman on the front porch with a copy of Atlas Shrugged under one arm and a nervous smile plastered across her face. "Oh, hello. Is this the book club?" "It certainly is," Angela told her. "You're right on time. Why not come in and get some snacks? We're just about to get started." Pretty soon, she had 8 people, not including herself, sitting in her living room and eating snacks. Linda and Harold were sitting beside each other on the couch, and there was also Patrick, David, Francine, and Cedric. They had wandered up in ones and twos, each of them making sure that this was the book club, and after about 30 minutes had gone by without a new person showing up, Angela decided it was time to bring the meeting to order. "Hello, Michelle. We're glad you could make it." Ooh, honey dipped chicken does sound good. "Not so late. We just got started, really." "Okay, everyone. We all know why we're here. We're here because we've heard the voices of our special friend on the radio or the TV or whatever it is you heard it from, and we've decided that the organization just makes a lot of sense. We've decided that unlike the rest of the town, we might like to have them, so I suppose that we ought to talk about how to make that happen. Her new friends didn't say much. Most of them just sat around and chewed, but Brandon put down his coffee cup and clapped his hands to get their attention. Well, I've been getting literature from the people outside of town and bringing it back in with me. I've met with our special friend's emissary, and he believes that with a little help, they might be able to cross the border of Kashmir and finally give the town what it's been waiting for. He says that the more people in support of the organization, the easier it'll be. So aside from coming to talk to many of you, I've been leaving pamphlets and tracts around the town. Nowhere they could be found, or that I could be linked to them, but I've been leaving them in places where they would be noticed. I'm hoping that once people see them, our special friend will be able to reach out to them as well, and they'll come to join us. My bad. There we go. What about our children? Patricia asked as she wiped her mouth on a napkin. My daughter hasn't really been interested in any of this, and I'm afraid to bring it up to my husband because I think he might tell the sheriff about it. He's one of the men they've deputized to help watch the borders, and I'm afraid they wouldn't understand. He hasn't heard the voice of our special friend, yet. He doesn't understand how it makes us feel when we listen to him. There we go. His emissary has expressed interest in getting his information to the children. Children are our future, after all, and he wants to ensure that the organization doesn't die out. That being said, you should be very careful who you talk to about this. Everyone in this room is probably fine, but it's going to be very difficult to talk to new people about the organization and its purpose. Hey, Bev. Glad to see you. You did. I hope you get your book soon. Change a few words. There we go. Oh man, we got a packed house tonight. They spent a few hours discussing strategies to talk to people or to let people know about the Bright, but there was another member they were unaware of, a member who may or may not have been aware that he was still with them at all. Hey, Nancy. Good to see you. Earl didn't dare come inside, but he hunkered beneath Angela's bushes as he listened to the meeting and tried to make sense of what he was hearing. Ever since he'd had his run-in with the man in the woods, he'd been hearing the voice of the Bright in his head. It had promised that it would take away the ghosts and their incessant needs, and as much as Earl would like to be rid of it, He knew that he would miss it once it was gone. Earl really didn't know what to do or what to say, but he was worried that the Bright might be slowly taking over his consciousness. It scared him, but it also felt right, and his mind was divided on what he should do about it. He felt... He left before the meeting ended, leaving once Angela said that they might better be getting off before anyone got suspicious. Earl wasn't sure that he trusted any of the Bright people, but given time, he knew that they might get what they wanted. As for Angela, she decided she might broach the subject with her husband again tonight. Maybe she would give him a little of the juice as well. Her son seemed to like it, so why not share a little with him? Who knew? Maybe he would be a convert as well. There you go. That is your Kashmir story for the night. Excuse me. Hey, Nancy. Good to see you. Let's see. Okay. I think maybe we'll move on to our Dr. Winters story this week. Let's see. Alrighty, Serenity. We're glad you stopped by. It's always good to see people in here. Alrighty, so we're going to head to our Dr. Winters story next. This one is called Guthrie's Confession, and it's going to look into the clinic a little more and what Dr. Winters has been doing about the Bright people. So, let's see what we got, and I hope you guys like it. It's strange, Doctor. It feels like there's a TV in my head, and I just can't get rid of the signal. Dr. Winters was making tea as she listened to Virginia Toller talk about her recent headache and her recent visions. The visions were more concerning than the headaches to Winters, and she pursed her lips as the woman laid out what was going on. It's never anything consistent. Sometimes I'll go a whole week without thinking about it, and then sometimes it's once or twice a day. It's like whatever is going on, I just stop and stare out at nothing. The static comes on, and it's like my channel's been switched. I don't know what to do about it. It's becoming a big problem. Virginia was one of the girls who worked down at the general store, and Winters could imagine that it was something of a problem to be filling someone's order and then suddenly have to stop. Her new Hey, Christina, we're glad you could make it. Her new husband probably didn't like it much either, and Winter was certain that she would see more than one burnt dinner if she were to look inside the woman's memories. Virginia would probably be surprised to learn that her condition was not unique. Dr. Winters had been seeing 3 to 4 patients a week, sometimes as many as 5, with this strange ailment of static on the brain. It was something she had begun to equate with the incursion of the Bright, but that was just a hunch. Honestly, it was just as much a part of the strange charm that seemed to linger inside Kashmir. You could never really be sure what was going to happen sometimes. If it was to do with the Bright and its incursion into the town, then Winter would handle it, but she really hoped the two were unrelated. This had been a real season for the Bright and its problems, and... yeah, hang on. Try that one again. She really hoped the two were unrelated. This had been a real season for the Bright and its problems, and Between them and the healing of the underprison, Dr. Winters had had very limited time these days for things like office hours or anything like a home life. "All right, Miss Toller, why don't you sit back and drink this and let me see what I can do about those static memories." Virginia took a sip of tea, and she was just saying how lovely it tasted when Dr. Winters sank her fingers into the woman's scalp. She wormed her digits into the gray matter, looking for the threads that would allow her to pull the static out, and she unfortunately had gotten rather good at it over the past few weeks. She had been correct. There were a few burnt dinners in there, a few shouting customers, a few blaring car horns, and it was obvious that the fugue state brought on by the static was getting worse. Winters kept digging, kept working, and eventually she found what she was looking for. The static seemed to manifest as a wire that ran around the mind of the victim. It was like barbed wire made out of electrical currents. It seemed it sent a not altogether. Let me try that again. Can't seem to get it. It sent a not altogether unpleasant sizzle through her fingers as she grabbed it, and she went. God, I can't fucking read tonight. But she winced as it slipped out of her grip and scuttled deeper into the brain. It was a slippery thing, an awful, oily little worm, and she found it again fairly easily. She grabbed a hold, and if she finally... As she finally got her fingers around it, she began to be bombarded by the static's usual defense. It started out as church music, that sonorous... I did, you are correct. That sonorous gospel music that you often heard around houses of worship. It started out low, and then it began to grow the longer it held onto the cord. She gritted. She gritted her teeth and continued to pull. It wasn't going to get out. Not now that she had a... I really should have checked this beforehand. Not now that she had a hand on it, but it was still fighting her for every step. She could hear that the church music was beginning to rise, and as it did, there was a voice beneath it all. She had never heard the voice before, but she found it so soothing on its own. It was a voice that would have been right at home in the place she had grown up, and she began to wonder just how insidious the bright really was. Why fight, Pamela? You are of the town, but they don't really know you. You need a place where someone like you can be accepted, can even be celebrated. Why don't you come and join us? We could find a place for someone such as you. You could be celebrated, even worshipped, so long as you pay homage to the power that's really in charge. Why fight it? We are inevitable. We will get what we want. It's only a matter of time. Why not play for the winning? Dr. Winters ripped it out a little harder than she had to, and the woman sitting on the couch made a sound that was almost orgasmic. She lunged forward, her breasts pushing at the front of her shirt, and when she settled back, Dr. Winters noticed that some of her tea had spilled onto her pants. She drank what was left with shaky hands, and when she shook her head, it was as if she had forgotten why she had come there. Dr. Winters? Did I fall asleep? I seem to have come here for some reason, but I can't remember why. Dr. Winters smiled and took the cup from her as she offered her a napkin to clean up her pants. That's always the sign of a good round of treatment. Don't worry, I think your problems are over now. Just be sure to come back if you're having any other side effects, and we'll get it sorted out. I'm so glad you came in today, and I hope that whatever is ailing you is gone for good. Virginia thanked her, and Dr. Winters walked her to the lobby as she assured her that everything would be okay now. Dr. Winters did not strictly know if everything was going to be okay, though. In fact, she thought that things were only just going to get worse. Whatever was to come, though, she would sort it out, and they would get everything back to normal, eventually. This could not remain like this for long, and it was the only... Can't read tonight, sorry. And it was only a matter of time before everything was set the way it should be. Trying to hold off that growl, honestly. It wouldn't be normal, but nothing in Kashmir was ever normal. Sheriff Guthrie was sitting in the lobby as the two of them came out. He looked tired, and Winters supposed that he would be. He'd been working the checkpoints lately, and she didn't think he'd had a day off in quite some time. She knew he needed to end this quickly so that the people's trust in him would be renewed, but she did wish that he would take care of himself. He could often be a nuisance, sometimes even a downright bother, but he was a good man, and she generally found that she liked him, most days. Thanks for doing this, Doc. It's been getting worse and worse lately, and I want them to get the help they need before it gets too bad. Think nothing of it. It's always my pleasure to help with town matters. Is that all of them? Do you have anyone else? No, but... well, he dithered, trying to figure out what to say. Is something wrong, Sheriff? No, it's fine. I'll see you later, Doc. He left, but Winter had only taken a few steps before the bell rang again, and he came right back in. His face was determined, seemed... What the hell? That's weird. His face was determined. And he seemed intent on telling her something. The look told her she probably wasn't going to enjoy whatever it was he had to say, but he clearly needed to say it. I need to talk to you. I need to tell you something, or I may never tell anyone. I need to get it off my chest, because it's been eating at me lately. Dr. Winters blinked at him, not quite sure what he was talking about, but invited him to the back so they could speak. She brewed some tea, not sure if he wanted something. Yeah. Removed or just to talk? And as she sat him down, she sat across from him and put her fingers together as she looked through them. Do you need me to get rid of a memory? Just to talk. I just need to talk about something. The election is coming up, and, I feel like I just need to get this off my chest, or else it's going to stick with me forever. I need to clear my head for what I'm doing these days, and I've been dreaming about some things lately. I'm hoping that once I tell you, these dreams will go away. Uh, he lay back, looking at the ceiling as he tried to order his thoughts. He looked like hundreds of other people that had sat on that couch from one time or another, and Dr. Winters felt sorry for him. This was always the hardest part, the starting. Once they got started, it all just rolled out as easy as pie. I know you heard the rumors for years that I killed Sheriff Masterson. For a time, it was all anyone could talk about. Well, I didn't kill him, but I was there when he died, and I do feel responsible for his death. Dr. Winters set her tea down and nodded as he spoke. I would have assumed that any guilt you had would have gone away once his ghost stopped following you around. Sheriff Guthrie looked at her in disbelief. You saw him? Of course. He was there, and then he just stopped following you. I assumed that whatever business he had with you was completed, and he'd moved on. Well, he did, but I still feel guilty about it sometimes. Guilty enough that I still have bad dreams about it from time to time. I feel like maybe if I tell you, then I'll feel better, and maybe I won't feel guilty about running for sheriff. It's the guilt that's eating at me. I think if I try to run for his old position, I'll end up spilling my guts at a debate. I just want to tell it and have it done. That way it can't haunt me anymore. Well, I'm willing to listen and not judge, so go ahead and tell it. It started with a call about something going on in the woods. We went to the ranger station, but no one was on duty, so we headed out into the woods to find someone who could help us. Masterson showed me an amulet and told me that he'd be safe because he had protection against the creatures of the forest. I don't know if he actually believed that or not, but it must have worked because nothing tried to attack us. We were fine up until we came to the hole and saw the fires burning around the outside. Dr. Winters looked at him through slitted eyes. Masterson took you to the hole? No, we only got about 100 feet from it before something noticed. Emblem or not, I don't think whatever it was liked us being that close during whatever they were doing. It started chasing us, and we ran for it. Masterson fell, his foot caught in a chuck hole, and he dropped the amulet that was protecting him. The amulet... That's not the line. This amulet, right here, actually, Guthrie said, as he took the amulet out of his shirt. Winters had seen the amulet before, but she didn't realize it was the one that the mayor had given to Sheriff Masterson. It was designed to keep lesser demons away, and She had nothing to fear from it. It made her feel a little queasy, maybe a little squirmy in the guts, but that was really about it. It could have no more kept her at bay than it could have kept one of her brothers away. He was yelling for me to get his amulet, and it was the only time I've ever seen him scared. I picked it up, but then I thought to myself that only one of us was likely to get out of this situation, and it would definitely be me, who had the amulet. I didn't want to die, so I took his amulet and I started running. He was screaming after me to come back, telling me that I'd killed him, and when whatever it was gobbled him up, it was the only thing that stopped him from yelling. I ran all the way back to the cruiser, and then I drove to town, and I told them that he'd been lost in the woods when we were out on a call. I never told them that I had been the one that took the amulet. I never told them that I'd been the one to take it from him. So, in my mind, I as good as killed him. It's a burden I've carried for years, and I gotta admit, I feel a little lighter now that I've told you. Where'd it go? There it is. You guys can't see it, but it has replaced the word amulet with ambulance, which I don't know. Grammarly's weird sometimes. I guess if they decide to sponsor the channel, I'll have to stop talking so much shit about them, but they definitely have some weird ideas about things. Dr. Winters was still mulling this all over as he sat up. She had suspected that Guthrie had had a hand in the sheriff's death, but she couldn't have imagined how directly it had affected him. Well, I'm glad you told me. Means a lot that you trust me that much. I know you're not human, but the service you do for this town and the help you've given me is worth more than humanity to me. I want to thank you for everything you've done, and I hope you won't hold my secret against me. Everyone has secrets, Guthrie. This town is made of secrets, but I think you already knew that. I'm here to help people forget their secrets, or at least set them aside until they can properly come to terms with them. I hope that's what I've helped you do today, and I hope that you will confide in me again when you feel the need to. Guthrie assured her that he would, and then he left to get back to whatever town business he still had to get behind him. Dr. Winters liked being the town's confidant, and she was glad that Sheriff Guthrie had finally thought enough of her to tell her the truth. It seemed she was often called to be the town's secret keeper, and it was a job that she was glad to hold. Alrighty, there we go. That's all for that, and now we're going to swap over to our short stories. Tonight, I've got a couple of them. One about a roller coaster and one about an abduction. I think we'll start with the roller coaster, though. It's called The Hurricane, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Oh, excuse me. I thought you would think so, Blondie. She didn't get to read that one, and I told her it would be a surprise for everybody. They called it the Starjet once. It was a huge roller coaster at Casino Pier in Seaside Heights, and my dad talks about it like it was magic. He rode it when he was younger, said it was easily the best coaster he'd ever seen, and Dad's rode roller coasters all over the place, so he'd know. It Must have made an impression because he became an engineer so that he could design them. And my childhood was full of trips to this park or to that park, so he could stand at the base of some hulking metal construction and say, "Caroline, your daddy designed this, and now we're gonna ride it." I never got to ride it myself. Never quite got tall enough to meet the requirements. You see, in 2012, Hurricane Sandy rolled in, and when the rain cleared, the Starjet was no longer on the pier and now resided out in the ocean. It wasn't gone far, though. Hadn't gone far. Hey, Lance. We're glad you could join us, buddy. Where'd it go? It hadn't gone far, though. It was just off the coast. Still well within sight, but its days of giving rides were over. The city never cleaned it up, never demolished it, and it was deemed too expensive to be bothered with. It more or less just sits off the coast in New Jersey, and the last name it was given before the storm seems very fitting. If you stand on the beach and look at it, you can still see the faded letters that dub it the Hurricane. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm a senior in high school now, and I'd figured I'd heard the last of the old coaster. I assumed it would fall apart out in the water and become a reef, or that eventually it would rust into nothingness and float away, but when a friend of mine said that her friend had actually ridden on the coaster, I shook my head and scoffed. "Oh yeah? How did they manage that? It's been out in the middle of the bay for close to 15 years. You might have seen it then, Christina. Apparently this is a real thing. Well, the coaster's real. The story's fake. But oh yeah, if you're moving here, for definite. Yeah, well, she says that a friend of hers heard that it was running out there. Margot, my cousin, said that one of her friends took her out there and they rode the coaster like it was still the same as it was in the old days. She said it's free now, but you don't have to buy a ticket, and that they rode it a couple of times and then they went home. We were behind the gym, smoking cigarettes and just kind of hanging out in between classes. And I flipped my butt into a nearby ditch before fixing Helen with a withering look. "Helen, that roller coaster doesn't just run on fairy dust. I don't think they've got the power capability to run an old roller coaster out in the middle of the ocean. I think maybe your cousin was having a little fun with you, maybe sharing a spooky story." Helen tossed her own cigarette into the ditch and shook her head. Margot isn't that kind of... Margot isn't into that kind of thing. If she says she wrote it, then she wrote it. I think we ought to go check it out. Aren't your parents going out of town this weekend? Maybe we could go check it out and have a couple of rides on it. Your dad would freak if he knew we had actually ridden the Hurricane. She wasn't wrong. My dad had loved that old roller coaster, and the idea that he could ride it again would have really brought a smile to his face. Dad hadn't been doing so well that year. He'd had a run-in with cancer, but this was just the sort of thing that would perk him up, maybe help him in his recovery. I didn't think for a minute that we would manage to get my dad out there. He was almost 50, and his legs just don't work the way they used to, but maybe he could get some pictures and... Maybe we could get some pictures and show him that the old Hurricane was still up and running. Oh, excuse me. Hey there, Kathleen. We're glad you could make it. All right. What could it hurt? Let's go for one last ride and see what your cousin is talking about. I didn't believe for a second that the roller coaster was actually running. It would have taken a technological marvel, the likes of which that Disney wasn't even aware of, to get the hurricane up and running in the middle of the ocean. But I didn't want to... I did want to snap some pictures of the old roller coaster for posterity. Plus, Dad would enjoy them, and I like seeing Dad smile these days. Helen said that she was going to ask Tracy and Selena to come with us, maybe even get Margot to come along if she would do it. I told her to bring half the school if that's what she wanted to do, but I only had room in my boat for 5, so the guest list would need to be pretty small. She came back during lunch and told me that everyone, including Margot, said that they were absolutely down to see the hurricane. So after Mom and Dad left for some sort of doctor's appointment in New York, I had the girls over, and we had some dinner before we headed out. Tracy and Selena were excited at the prospect of seeing the old roller coaster, but I don't think either of them really thought we'd get to ride it. Margot, Helen's cousin, who was about 3 years older than her and already in college, told them that it was nothing they had ever experienced, and they might want to dress warmly or wear ponchos. I saw something there. I guess not. I wrote it the year before it closed, but it was nothing like it was back then. It's like riding inside an actual hurricane. The wind and the rain and the constant turns and twists. And as she talked about it, I noticed that her eyes got a little far away and scared looking. It's unlike any roller coaster I've ever seen before. How it operates out in the middle of the water, I don't know, but it's absolutely worth a look. Everyone was excited, all of us wanting to have a peek at this mysterious roller coaster, and as the sun began to set, we all loaded up into Dad's little boat and headed out to the site of the hurricane. There are no signs out around it telling you to be cautious. There are signs. There are signs out there around it telling you to be cautious because of debris in the water, but mostly they're out there to keep people from going out to the hurricane and trying to climb on it and getting hurt. You can see it all from the shore, but it was the first time I'd seen it lit up. There were actual lights on around the roller coaster, showing the twists and turns and catching the spray of the waves in it. It was spooky, like seeing a kraken rise out of the ocean. I was a little hesitant to get close as we came up on it, and what I had thought were waves turned out to be cars running along the tracks. There shouldn't have been any way that could be. It should have been impossible, but they were there. You could see the cars go around the turns or go over the hairpins, and then they would return to the cradle. I told you, Margot said as she pointed at the coaster. It still works. Come on, let's go. There were other boats pulled up to the little dock that had been set up outside the hurricane. I saw a couple of skiffs and a little motorboat, but we never saw anybody else. So anybody else? I suppose maybe they were checking out the gift shop. Ha ha. And as we mounted the platform where you got onto the car, I saw it come to rest in the cradle and watched as the safety bar opened to allow people to get on. We didn't get in right away. We stood there for a minute, just looking at it, and after about 2 or 3 minutes, the safety bars came back down, and the car shot off across the tracks yet again. The whole ride took about a minute and a half, and it came to rest in the cradle again as the safety bars came up. "Come on," Helen said as she ran towards the cars. "Let's get on." Selina and Tracy seemed a little bit hesitant. "Who's operating this thing?" Selina said as she looked around and tried to find out who was manning the controls of the roller coaster. "I don't know," Margot said as she drew up short from the car. "Maybe it's all automated or something. Who knows? But it works. I don't see anybody splattered on the tracks, so let's get on." Tracy hung back, but Selina ran forward to jump into a car before she could think better of it. Margot was already getting in, and Helen was getting in beside her. The two of them looked at me as if to ask if I was going to check. Chicken out. The two of them looked at me as if to ask if I was going to chicken out now, and I slid in beside Selina. The safety bar popped down, and the car began to move. It was a weird feeling, watching Tracy disappear behind us as the coaster began to climb up the first hill. Before we had gotten on, the wind had been pretty mild, and the spray had been nothing to write home about. It was just a typical night, nothing out of the ordinary. But the higher we got, the more the wind began to whip, and the more the water began to fall down on us. It was almost as if a light rain had begun, and I was glad for the poncho that I had worn pretty quickly. Selina had come out in her jeans and a band t-shirt. And pretty quickly she was soaked to the skin. The waves began to get higher, too. As they crashed against the coaster, they would shake the frame and send water up and over the cart more than once. Helen and Margot laughed as if it was the coolest thing they had ever seen. But I knew enough about roller coasters to know that you probably weren't supposed to get them wet, especially not the machinery. A little wet was okay, and some of them had been set up to submerge, but I didn't think that the Starjet, or the Hurricane, was one of them. As we came to the top of the hill, I remember looking down into the water as it pooled around the tracks, and being pretty sure that we were about to smash into the rocks that had come up between them, and this was going to be my last coaster ride. We came down, but we must have missed the rocks because we continued forward unimpeded. The rain and the wind got even worse, and when we returned, when we turned. When we turned, we were hit with spray and thick droplets as the wind whipped everything into our faces. A few times I was struck by something a little thicker, hail perhaps, but it was so disorienting that it was really hard to remember. Riding the coaster was like being in an actual hurricane, and every turn brought us more and more pelting rain and whipping wind. After a while, I couldn't even see the tracks. It was like we were inside a cyclone, inside a monsoon, and something was lingering just outside the rain as it watched us. It was huge, a giant that had risen from the water, and I could feel its many eyes on me as we rode the hurricane. Luckily, the ride was only supposed to be a minute and a half, but it felt like we rode the roller coaster for hours. Later, I would discover that my face was windburnt. There were bruises on my arms and legs where the hail had struck them too. My poncho was soaked through, the water not something it was ever designed to disperse. And when we finally came to a stop in the cradle again, I was out of breath and having trouble getting to my feet. Selena got me up and out of the ride just before it started up again, but Helen and her cousin weren't so lucky. Lucky may not have been the right word. They didn't want to get off the ride. We called to them as Selena and I hunkered down on the ramp that would have led us to the cars, and Tracy came up to make sure that we were okay as the two girls rode the hurricane again. I was in no shape to ride anything. I was having trouble catching my breath, and my lungs burned like I'd been walking through a winter evening. I was having a mild asthma attack, I believe, and as I sat there and tried to regain control of my breathing, I watched the coaster fly through the turns and ride the hills yet again. I couldn't believe they had wanted to go a second time. Once had been more than enough for me. When the coaster came back to the cradle yet again, the girls were still calling for more. Their faces had begun to peel, their skin red and angry looking, but they refused to get off and told us to go on without them. They looked like people in a religious experience, and they insisted that they would find some way back to shore. We stayed for nearly a half an hour, but after a while, we got back in the boat and went home. I told myself that they would take one of the other boats that were already docked there, but neither Helen nor Margot were ever seen again. Her mother came to my house and asked if I'd seen them, and I had to lie and tell them that they'd left my house early and gone somewhere that I didn't know about. Tracy and Selena must have told them a similar story, because the police labeled them both as runaways, and the case was closed pretty quickly. I don't know what to think about my experience out there on the hurricane, but it's an experience I don't want to repeat. I've ridden roller coasters from coast to coast, but that was something different. It was like being inside of a storm and sensing something bigger than you has control of the wind and the rain. I believe that whatever guards the hurricane wanted it to be out there. It wants to bring people out there so it can keep them there for as long as their bodies can handle it. I believe that the boats that were there were from people who got on and just never got off again. I still look at the hurricane sometimes. You can see it from the dock beyond my house, and at night it still lights up and invites people to come inside. I'll never go again. Some experiences are best lived only once. All right, there you go. Got one more story. And then it's time for so long, I think. Let's see. What have we got for last here? Oh, yeah. This one's a story about a fella who thinks his life couldn't get any worse, but he's proven sadly wrong. So, this one's called A Better You, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I've never been what you'd call a successful man. I was a loser in high school, more interested in smoking pot and drinking at parties than studying. I was a solid C student, and it ensured that any college I went to would want a huge payment for me to attend. Without the prospects of higher learning, I went looking for a trade instead. Trade school was a little more reasonable, And a good thing, too, because I went on a tour of their course catalog. I spent a semester here, a semester there, learning welding, nursing assistance, AC repair, computer science, and about a dozen other things before my parents cut me off. I would only last a couple of months before changing to something else, and finally, they had enough of it. My parents had been patient with me, way more than they should have been, but after 4 years of trade school, they'd had enough. They put me out of their house, told me I needed to make my own way, gave me a few $100s to keep me off the street. It didn't work. I still slept rough for a few nights, couch surfed for a few more, but eventually I got a job at a gas station and managed to afford a one-bedroom apartment in a sketchy part of town. It's not great. I have to change the locks pretty often since people keep kicking my door in, but it's home. The home invasion would probably bother me if I had anything worth stealing, but I don't. The only thing I have that's worth a damn is my laptop, and I take it everywhere with me. My TV is too old to pawn, my collectibles are all sentimental, even my furniture is secondhand, maybe even third-hand. Life isn't great, but suppose it could be worse. Apparently, it could be a lot worse. I was off one night, lying in a stupor of drugs and alcohol as I tried to quiet my mind so I could fall asleep, when I heard the new lock on my front door burst inward, as someone gave it a stiff kick. Even in my current state, I knew I was in danger. This was going to be bad if they found me back here. I was in no position to defend myself. I wasn't even in a position to call for help. Whatever had been in the skag I'd bought from a pal of mine was probably laced with something harder than I had wanted, and it laid me out like a bug on a glue board. I expected to hear them dragging things out of the cabinets or commenting on my crappy electronics, but they were making a beeline for my bedroom, as if they were looking for something specific. Excuse me. I could hear them coming closer, and no matter how hard I tried to move, I couldn't make my body obey me. It was as if I was floating on a cloud, and none of my systems wanted to operate correctly. I remember kicking myself for not hiding my laptop, and I knew that if they came in, they were going to take it when they saw it just sitting on the desk. It's hard to explain that feeling if you've never felt it, but it's one of the worst experiences I've ever had. When they opened the door to my bedroom, I felt absolutely defenseless for the first time in my life. I knew there was a chance they would kill me, but I felt certain that they'd probably leave me alone once they realized I couldn't get up or do anything about their invasion. The door opened, and I heard them talking in low voices as they walked in. One of them called me by name, and the other one said that it had been Bleh. And the other one And the other one said that it had to be me before he reached down and lifted me onto his shoulder. I expected they would ransack the room, but they didn't. The three of them walked out with me, and as they went into the elevator that would take them to the ground floor, I realized that no one had tried to stop them. People who live in my neighborhood usually mind their own business pretty well, but come on. You expect that some of them will say something when they realize that someone is being abducted. From my vantage point on my abductor's shoulder, I couldn't really see anything except his back. There were two others in the elevator, but they were standing in front of me, so all I could really see was the back of his pants, and all I could really hear was their voices. They seemed to be discussing me as if I was some kind of commodity, and it made me wonder if being killed was the worst thing they could do to me. Was this some kind of sex trafficking thing? Was I going to have my organs harvested, or were they going to try to ransom me back to my family? Good luck with that second one. I hadn't even spoken to my family for close to 4 years, and I doubted they were going to pay money for me. I expected that maybe someone would ask them what they thought they were doing as the elevator doors opened, and they walked out the front door, but no one did. They just walked up to a van and sat me on one of the seats in the middle row. I got a good look at them then, and 2 of them looked pretty rough. One of them was bald, but his face was a patchwork of scars and old wounds that hadn't quite healed. The other one looked like he might have stopped smoking meth and went on to chewing it. His skin was a craggy mess, and his gray hair was long and stringy. The third looked the most normal, though he was missing an eye, and his face was still lined with scars. He had his hair cut short in a military fashion, and the way he moved made me think that one of his legs might be prosthetic. As he sat, I began to think the arm on his left side was also fake. He sat beside me in the van, and one of them slid something over my face. It was a black mesh bag, and the inside smelled like spit and sweat. They buckled me in, and then the one with the prosthetic limbs told them to go. I couldn't see as we drove, but I could hear, and hearing was bad enough. "Look at him. He's off his gourd." "He should be," said the one sitting right beside me. "I paid Dwayne extra to give him the stuff that we laced." Dwayne. That made me feel sick to my stomach. Excuse me. Dwayne had been my regular dealer for years. We'd known each other in high school, and it was a relationship that had lasted into my adult years. Dwayne had good stuff, and his prices for locals were usually pretty reasonable. The idea that Dwayne would have screwed me over was not something I really wanted to think about, but I guess I would have to. "At least he still has a Dwayne," one of them said, and the comment didn't make a lot of sense until later. I lost mine back when that meth fire happened. "Did you see his apartment? He's got all that, yet he still sees the need to get high. What kind of demons does this guy have to fight? What kind of problems could be so bad?" "Thanks, Blondie. I appreciate that. Be sure to get the turkeys the nice food this week." The conversation was pretty weird, but it wasn't as weird as the feeling of having my arm lifted by the guy sitting next to me. He'd lifted the sleeve and was moving my arm by the wrist as he inspected it. I don't know why, but it felt like he was assessing merchandise, and it made me wonder again if this was some kind of black market organ harvest. Surely they couldn't take my arm off and put it onto someone else. Could they? I wasn't up on that kind of thing, not as much as I should be, but it didn't seem like something they'd be able to do. If it's never happened to you, then it's probably impossible to explain, but that feeling of helplessness was something that I just couldn't shake. Maybe it was the drugs, but I think it was just being unable to move while these people did whatever they wanted to me. Luckily, the things they wanted to do were mostly take me somewhere else and weirdly inspect my arm, but I realize now that it could have been a lot worse. I was like a puppet, completely at their mercy, and whether they realized it or not, it was my own personal hell. We pulled up somewhere, and they took me out of the van with one under each arm. My feet had begun to kick weakly at that point, my fingers wiggling just a little bit, but I was still basically a rag doll. They took me inside, and the sound of nightlife between the van and the front door made me think we might be near the area where I usually met Dwayne. It was the kind of place where you heard sirens and gunshots and people yelling at all hours of the night, and the kind of place where screeching tires might signify the end of your life. It was not the sort of place I particularly wanted to be after dark, and if they'd brought me here, then there was no telling what was to follow. They brought me inside, sat me down, and then duct taped my hands to a metal chair. I still had the black bag on, so I wasn't sure where we were. And as it came off, I could see we were in some kind of warehouse. It was empty, not the sort of place where you'd have to trip over stored things. And I was sitting in the center of a pool of light as over a dozen people gathered around the outskirts. I was glare blind, and I couldn't see any of the people standing outside the light. They were barely defined figures, human approximations made out of shadow, and as one of them came forward, I could hear the oddly metallic sound of a prosthetic foot hitting the ground. As he came into the light, I could see it was the man with the military haircut, the one that had looked so familiar. And as he came right up to me, I realized why he looked familiar. He was me, just with more scars and a messy haircut. Damn it. Just with more scars and a less messy haircut. He looked at me appraisingly, turning my head this way and that with his good hand, and I could see old bullet holes and the scars of hot metal that had left his cheek a ruin. One of his eyes was white, the dead look that you usually got when it had been damaged beyond repair, but the other one was bright and working. He looked at me the way people look at art, the way people look at a plasma screen TV on the wall at Walmart, the way people look at things that they want, but they know they can't afford. He turned my face to look at his, and when he did, he smiled, and I could see that he was missing quite a few teeth. Excuse me. Well, look at you, the cream of the crop, the one who was spared. We've been looking for you for quite some time, me and my friends here. Looks like we finally found you. Your friends? I managed to slur out. He looked back at the light and invited a few of them to come forward. They still seemed hesitant, not really sure if they wanted to be seen, and instead, he shook his head and turned back to look at me. I was the best of us until we found you. I was a sergeant in the Army. It was a great honor for someone like me, solid C student who never amounted to much of anything. I was living pretty good, eating 3 meals a day, sleeping in a bed. I was respected, and people generally appreciated me. Then, and as he began, I saw his good eye cloud with memory. I ran over that IED while on patrol. I was the only survivor. My unit was killed on impact. I lost my arm, my leg, and my eye. While I was recovering, I became addicted to painkillers. When I retired from service, it followed me longer than my pension did. I'm an addict, but that's not that uncommon with us. After that, the others began to come forward. All of them were me, from some other reality or circumstance or what have you. The two that had picked me up were meth addicts, one of them a cook and one of them strictly a buyer. Several of them were drug mules, a means to pay for their habit. One of them was on disability after a fake slip and fall at a Costco had actually messed up 3 discs in his back. None of them were remotely what you would call successful. Few of them had even graduated high school. All of them were addicts to something, and the ones who the one who had served in the military was the only one who had ever held a real job. As I listened to them, I began to realize how good I had it. Most of them didn't have a home. Few had cars. Most lived under the knowledge that their profession would eventually land them in jail. They made me look like a respectable citizen, but I wasn't sure what they wanted from me. I was no paragon of maturity. What did they expect? How did all of you get here? I asked, stalling for time. How did all of you find each other? It was me, said one of them from the back of the pack. He was a little guy, smaller than the rest somehow, and I realized that he was the only one of us who wasn't at our usual 5'8". He stepped forward, grinning gap-toothedly as he saw me sizing him up. Happened about a year ago. I needed money for any number of things, and I decided to be a part of some medical testing. Turned out to be less medical and more scientifical, and something that they gave me allowed me to travel between realities. I don't think that was their intentions. Nobody would give a junkie that kind of power, but when I realized what had happened, I looked for myself and found that I was here as well. I figured out that I could hold hands with somebody and they could travel with me. We went through this a few times. Several realities don't have you in them because you either overdosed or you did something stupid and got yourself killed. The fellows who are with us now are the ones that are still alive, the ones that are still sane. And when we got here and discovered how well adjusted you were, we knew we had to talk to you. Well adjusted? Me? That was the first time anyone had ever called me anything close to well adjusted, and it almost made me want to laugh. One look around told me they were serious, though. This was probably not the sort of crowd that you wanted to laugh at. We're attempting to find the clinical trial that gave this one his ability. We want to go help the others. We want to make them better than they are, but we need to find out... Excuse me. We need to find one of us who wasn't an absolute waste. You have a job, you have a life that isn't drugs, and you're the closest we found to a functional version of ourselves. We need to know how you did it. We need to know how we can make our lives better. I don't know why I'm wasting my time posting this rather than racking my brain for some core event that could make everything go away, but I guess if anything like this has ever happened to anyone else, maybe you could reach out. As for me, I guess I'm on my way to give myself the bad news. They aren't going to like it, but it seems my success is almost a fluke. It seems that I'm the best... It seems that I'm the best version I can be, and the idea is truly horrific. Alrighty, guys, that's it for tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed the stories. Neck's got a cramp in it. And I hope we'll see you guys again next time. It's a good stream tonight. Good crowd. It's always good to see more people. Trying to think. Tune in next Wednesday for another live stream. Probably not a grandpa story next week. I'm still waiting to hear back from LaDama, but they should be soon. I'm hoping she sends her lines back pretty soon as I touch base with her. Till then, hope to see you guys next time. Dr. Plague signing off. You guys have a wonderful evening, and you all take care. Bye-bye.